Maybe hold off like 20 minutes. Five seconds. Alright, let's do this. G'day guys, welcome once again to the Tripod. This week we'll be breaking down week 9. It's a pretty special round actually. It's obviously a Magic Round. All the games will be at Suncorp. And if you're in our group, you'll know that me and Jacob will be attending on the Sunday. I know it's Mother's Day for a lot of you. You'll have stuff to do and with the mum and all that kind of thing. But if you do want to pop down and have a beer with us, make sure you're in the group. We've got the event in there, and you can catch up with us, have a couple of beers before the game on Sunday, and it should be a good time. But Jacob, how are you, buddy? Before we get stuck into the round.
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. It's a really cool initiative by the NRL to get all 16 teams playing in Brisbane, obviously kicking off tomorrow night and all the way through, double-header, triple-header, and double-header on Sunday, which was the only day we could make it. And we're going to, break down every game. People will know that we had our worst round, not just of the season, but our worst round ever in tipping for us. If we go something like 16 and 23, that's a bad round. Last round was 6 and 23. It was really bad. In fact, this season, we've not only had our worst round in 5 years, we've had our two worst rounds in 5 years of tipping, have both been in the first 8 weeks this season. Our record's 89 and 80. So it could be worse, but it's definitely not good. And just with regards to our tips, obviously, we never say anyone has to follow our tips and, our tips are gospel, but we give you our tips. We give you our reasons why. It's all free. And, the majority of weeks in the last 5 seasons, you've had a lot of people who've been very happy to be following, and you've had people who've said, I wish I was on those tips. And last week was the opposite. The people who followed regretted it, and there's plenty of people thankful they didn't touch our tips last week. But, we haven't given up. This week, with all the games in Brisbane, will be a good test of the way that we handicap games, because there is no home ground advantage, really, from a lot of the games to factor in. So it purely is often looking at, who's better than who and by how much.
Yeah, exactly. And it should be a great atmosphere there. And just on your point about, obviously, the 2 worst weeks that we've ever had this year. I mean, we're still over 50% for the season and we're 8 weeks deep. At least we don't hide from our losses. Obviously, if you've been in the group long enough, there's a lot of pages that crop up, claim to win like 80%, and then they have a bad week and then they disappear. We'll cop it on the chin, and we know we win long term. So, got to back it up this week. And like we said, last time we had a losing week, haven't had back-to-back losing rounds in, nearly a year and a half now. So this is the week. We're going to bounce back. Let's start off on Thursday night. We've got the Titans plus 2.5 points against the Sharkies. 41.5 is the total. Obviously, I won't be saying hosting or anything like that, because every game is at Suncorp. The only team that's going to have a proper home field advantage is the Broncos. I've got a lean to the Titans here. Not a huge lean, but a slight one. I think these teams, you can definitely make an argument that the Sharks are slightly better. How much better than the Titans are? I think it's fairly close. Once again, a little bit less travel time for the Titans to get to Brisbane, so that's a slight advantage as well. Have the Titans coming off a loss to the Cows, which was disappointing, but it was also a 14-point loss on the scoreboard. I don't think that they were 14 points worse on the day, even though we were on the Cows in that one. I thought that final score was a little bit misleading. We do like to bet on teams that have come off a misleading loss, and likewise, we like to bet against teams that are coming off a misleading win. And the Sharks, not necessarily a misleading win, but just a massive win for them. And like Jacob says in a lot of the pods, no team is as good as their best performance, and no team is as bad as their worst performance. And last week was the Sharkies' best performance of the year by a country mile. And I don't think that they'll play like that again this week. As we've seen, you've got to kind of average out the whole year. If they play like they did against the Storm, yes, they'll beat the Titans. But I think it's a little bit of a letdown spot for the Sharkies, and the Titans are the slight value for me in this one.
Yeah, when you say the Sharks' best performance of the year, I mean, considering who is there, and there are a lot of key players to come back into this team, and there is a lot of improvement in this team. But for this week, just Katoa out, Feki in. I mean, Dugan was a late call-up last week against the Storm, and while he had his, standard error that he always has in the first half, he was huge for them second half, catching a lot of bombs with a lot of heat and some strong carries. He is still a good player for all the shit he cops. He's back in there. This Shark side, very spirited. We've spoken of that a number of weeks. There's a lot of fight, a lot of confidence. I've got to shout out a guy like Chad Townsend. I feel like he's always played his part in that squad, and when there were better playmakers than him, he didn't overplay his hand. And in recent weeks, he's had to do more. He's taken on more responsibility. He's playing really well, one of the form, sevens in the comp. You don't really want to bet against this Shark side. And for the Titans, Tyron Roberts is out and he's been really good at 5'8", but AJ Brimson is a very skillful young player who can go in there in the halves with Taylor. Sammy out, Copley in. I think the forward packs are pretty evenly matched. I've got to shout out the Sharkies bench as well. They lost Aaron Woods off their bench, but you got Bakoya, Williams, this ULA, all bringing on power off the bench. But to me, and the Sharkies as well have already played at Suncorp this year and had a very disappointing, 29-6 loss. They'll want a better performance. I can understand why they're favoured, but I lean to the Titans getting the points. I think most of the public looks at the Sharks as a good team and looks at the Titans as a bad team, and as simple as that, most of the public will be on the Sharks. So we haven't got any best bets yet. We're happy to wait and see if this line gets to 4 or higher. Yeah,
just like Jacob said, as you can see on the screen there, no best bets as of yet, but certainly a lean to the Titans, and like Jacob said, we're going to see if we can get a +4 a bit closer to game time. On the Friday early game, we got the Tigers plus 1.5 points against the Panthers. Lowest total of the round, 36.5 points. I have a slight lean to the Panthers in this one. I know we've been copping shit for taking the Panthers week after week, and they have been letting us down massively. But it seems like we say this like a broken record every single week, that this week is do or die for the Panthers. But to be honest, they put in an average performance last week against the Raiders, but I didn't think that the score necessarily reflected the outcome of the game, along with, a couple of other games last week. So I didn't think that the Panthers were 20 points worse than the Raiders necessarily. But the issue is you've got Tigers coming off an absolute blowout as well in a 30-point loss, which probably shouldn't have been, a 30-point loss. That was 6-all, 32 minutes into the game. It looked like it's going to be an arm wrestle, and then Latrell happened, and they got Latrelled. So that can happen with a team like the Roosters. So you've got both teams coming off pretty disappointing losses, completely neutral venue, but I guess the big thing as well for this one is Viliami Kikau been named in the reserves, and he is an absolute monster. So we kind of want to hold out and see if he's going to play. As you can see, we've got one best bet on the board right now, but that was just too good a value. We had to take it, and we're going to kind of decide tomorrow morning which way we're going to go in terms of the bets, but certainly leaning Panthers at this stage.
Yeah, and we don't want to confuse people. We're saying we're lean Panthers, and if I have to lean and pick the winner, I'm taking the Panthers in this one. But the best bet is the Tigers to be leading at halftime or full time, because this game is basically, the odds are basically $1.90 on both sides. It's basically a 50-50 game, and you can get $1.83 for the Tigers to be leading at halftime or full time. If we find some value markets on the Panthers, we may come back and play a couple that favour the Panthers as well. I mean, it should be a pretty even game. We spoke about both teams really disappointing last week, and both teams are in a little bit of a rut. Well, the Tigers have been kind of yo-yoing with their form, and the Panthers absolutely need to win here. Now, a few changes for both sides. You got Isaiah Yeo with a shoulder injury. That's a big injury. Malachi Witeni-Lesniak is out, but that allows Dallin to move to the wing, and actually Farre is back from injury. So if anything, the back line could be strengthened. Maloney fought his dangerous throw charge and won, so he's still in there. Geez, I tell you, there's that many 5'8s gone better than Maloney. I think he's no chance to play Origin this year. But Nathan Cleary still wants to stake his claim, and those two still have to put, some performances up. This is a big one here. And Kikau, I actually feel, as much as he's their best forward, they rely on him too much, and it's too telegraphed when they're going to him. We thought it was a bad knee injury. It turns out it may have been a bit more of a scare and more ankle related. He's an unknown. Is he going to come off the bench? Is he going to play at all? So we kind of want to find out the information with him. Of course, this is a rematch where the Panthers won thanks to that comeback, sideline conversion, field goal. They didn't deserve to win that game. So there's probably a little bit of revenge motivation to the Tigers as well. But both sides should definitely not be short of motivation. And so we'll see tomorrow what we can find in the markets with this one. Should be close.
Yeah, it should be a close one. And at this stage, we're just taking one bet because it's definitely not going to be there tomorrow. We're taking the Tigers to be winning at halftime or full time. That one is $1.83 on Sportsbet. Before we move on to the next game, I see a couple of comments flowing through. We do our best to try and answer comments, but people are asking how to use the gold card on Neds. Obviously, they've got that Legends boost, and they've brought out the gold card. I'm not sure of the exact things, but it's like 30 cents boosted price on like head-to-head sides. What I would suggest, because you can only use $100 on each game, which is not that great, but I guess a lot of money for a lot of punters out there. Certainly, mathematically it makes sense to take the favourite in a head-to-head market because a 30-cent boost to a favourite's price is much more significant than a 30-cent boost to an underdog's price. But because all the games are fairly even this week, I think, obviously the highest line is like 7.5 this week. I would dead set just take the teams that I thought were going to win outright. Even if you're getting a $2.20 dog, and you like them, I would still suggest tacking on, 30 cents to that rather than taking a $1.70 favourite that you don't like. But certainly if there's like short favourites that you do like $1.30, $1.40, I would certainly suggest boosting those ones 30 cents because that is quite a significant percentage boost to the price there.
Yeah, it depends how many you get to play or whatever, but to just break down the maths,
I think, one a game.
If it was horse racing, you could get 30 cents extra on Winks, and you could make Winks $1.40 instead of $1.10. That's going to be way more in your favour than taking a horse that's $10 odds and getting $10.30 or something. So just the maths will definitely favour taking a favourite with that bonus.
Absolutely. Next up, people are going to hate us for this. Manly plus 4.5 against the Broncos. Well, technically that Manly are hosting the Broncos, but as we know, it is at Suncorp. The total is 40.5 points. This is my favourite game of the round. I love the Broncos here. People have been heaping absolute shit on the Broncos all week long, basically all season long. They're coming off an absolute drubbing to the Rabbits, which once again I think is a misleading final score. They give up 3 fairly lucky tries. Yes, Darius Boyd had a hand in those first 2, but they weren't 32 or whatever points worse than the Rabbits. They get a long turnaround, and you know that a good team off a long turnaround generally does tend to bounce back. I know people could argue that Broncos aren't a good team this year, but they were second favourites coming into the season, so they had high hopes for the season. They have been absolutely blasted. Seabold's dropped Isako, they've dropped James Roberts, McCulloch's injured. This is a wounded Broncos team, but I think that they absolutely lift for this one. This is Magic Round, it's at Suncorp. Broncos still are the better team in my eyes. They are better than Manly. Let's not forget that Lachlan Croker's out, Adam Fanua-Blake's out for Manly. Kane Elgey is, once again, I know he had a great game last week. He is not that good. That's not his average standard, throwing absolute dime cutout passes. He's not that good. I said last year he's a second grade player. You've got Manly. The Broncos have one of the stronger home field advantages. We say that the Broncos home field is worth about 3.5 to 4 points. Broncos get 2 extra days rest. This is an absolute slam dunk. Broncos are my side of the week. I love them.
Yeah, it's getting harder and harder to argue the Broncos are a good side. And you talk about Isako and Roberts getting dropped. If it was me and someone said, how do you fix the Broncos? My first move would probably be Isako to fullback. And I know he's been playing shit.
You get him out of there.
But maybe it will spur them on. But we're not taking the Broncos this week because we hope they win. We objectively have looked at this game independently and both felt they are still value. Stags to come, like the guy like Isako and James Roberts, these are the guys I thought would flourish under Seabold. And what it's come to is them being dropped. It is worrying. Dearden starts again at halfback. You can't judge how good he is. He showed some toughness, if we can say that, against the Bunnies. McCulloch, for him to do his MCL at training, sums up their season.
That's true.
So Turpin he's covered a couple of times. Flegler takes Tavita Pangai Jr.'s starting spot. So, if there is one thing I can say I do like about this Broncos side, Dave Fafita, Pangai Jr. and Alfred Gowie all on the bench. That is a pretty sick bench. And on the Manly side, they are without quite a few key players. Obviously, Cherry Evans and even now Croker in the halves. So Coruscant moves into 6. Fayunu playing hooker, but he's not an 80-minute hooker. There'll be a reshuffle with Sirinen there. I just think Manly, who have won 5 of their last 6 and come in with way better form than Brisbane, have been winning these games through their forwards. And I actually think without Fanua-Blake, I don't think Manly wins the forward battle here. I don't think Manly has the outside backs to take advantage of Brisbane's deficiencies there. And I look at other edges like the bench, and I look at the home advantage and the desperation, and I do think Brisbane's going to win this game.
Yes, indeed, and we've got 4 best bets for now. First up, we're taking the Broncos minus 3.5 points for the game. You'll find that one on Sportsbet at $1.85. You have to look under the other market section. It's right down the bottom. We'll take Broncos minus 1.5 points in the first half. That one is $1.81 on Sportsbet as well. All these are on Sportsbet, actually. Broncos over 3.5 tries at $1.92, and Manly under 8.5 points in the first half at $1.81.
And look, there will be definitely some people who are losing their mind right now and will let us have it for taking the Broncos yet again. I guess that's the beauty of betting. You don't have to agree with us, and if you want to bet the opposite of a few of those, you're getting close to $2 odds. So hey, if those bets aren't good, then a good opportunity to make money going against us if we're wrong and we're just blindly taking the Broncos. But we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up, we got the Doggies plus 4 points against the Knights. 41.5 is the total. Actually, that's a mistake. So I wrote these odds out about noon today, putting the graphics in. You can't even get plus 4 anymore. It's 3.5 now on the Dogs, and that is an issue because I had a slight lean to the Dogs at plus 4, but now it looks like money's come for the Dogs, and they're looking like they're plus 3.5 across the board. Not sure exactly what's moved it. I can't imagine that the public is betting the Bulldogs because they're a good side. Maybe there's news that have come out that Kieran Foran is getting closer to play, or maybe definitely playing. So he's been named in the reserves. It'll be first game back in a while. To be honest with you, though, like I said, it's his first game back in a while. He's not going to come back and be a game breaker and be an absolute gun. So what I hope will happen is that Kieran Foran gets scratched, and then money comes to the Knights, and then I can maybe get like a 4.5 or even more on the Dogs. That's what I would like to see. Obviously we've got the Dogs coming off a pretty average loss to Manly. We've got the Knights coming off probably their best win of the season. They were absolutely fantastic in that game against the Warriors. But as we know with the Knights, they're an up and down team, and to be honest, I'd be very surprised if they played as well as they did last week this week. So just at the line, I think that the Knights are the better team than the Dogs, but whether they're 4 points better than the Bulldogs on a neutral venue, I'm not so certain of.
When you say you type in these odds, I mean, like you mentioned Tigers plus 1.5 earlier, you may not even be able to get that anymore. And yeah, this line was 4 a few hours ago, but maybe not plus 4 anymore. But all the best bets, we combed through the markets, within an hour of going live. So the best bets, we're pretty confident they're at least within a few minutes of us saying them, and then we can't control sometimes if the bookies, in a couple of cases, realise they're getting smashed on a certain market. With this game, Foran in the reserves again, I think he will play. I actually don't know if they'll drop Cogger or Lachlan Lewis, but I think he will lift them just, being one of their, I guess, marquee players, just his toughness and maybe add a little bit of a X factor into this Dogs team. Ogden is dropped and Swasa who I've always rated, is into this side. And speaking of Dogs forwards, Dylan Napper was back last week. Tolman is actually having a good season. Jackson is quietly having a really good year. Harry Naira has been a good recruit, and Reece Martin since he made it. That really is a rock solid pack. But, a pack that doesn't get a lot of credit at all is the Knights because they've been getting bullied most weeks. But the last couple of weeks, you spoke about over in New Zealand, but the week before against Eels as well, they won those games by really establishing dominance in the middle. Clemmer playing better, the Fitzgibbon and Barnett, really good, talented young back rowers. Glasby, who played for Queensland last year. It's an underrated Knights pack, and this is a hard game to predict because I don't know if they're going to come with that same gusto 3 weeks in a row, because that's how it starts with their forwards running hard, tackling hard in the middle. Then Mitchell Pearce playing halfback as well as anyone in the comp. Last 2 weeks, he's been the best halfback in the comp, and he leads the way with his direction, and then Ponga kind of plays off the back a bit. Now they've moved into fullback. So I just wonder actually, since the Knights are getting the ascendancy with their forwards, if that's an area of strength for the Dogs, maybe the Dogs can negate that. And if the Knights aren't getting go forward, Ramian's out as well. They don't have a heap of kind of playmakers outside of Ponga, and he struggles when he doesn't get given space. So I could see the Dogs strangling the Knights in this one a bit, but I would want, 4 or more points to take the Dogs. So we're just going to wait and see where that line moves and what the foreign news is.
Yeah, it's a funny one. I don't think we're getting over, now that it's moved to 3.5, I don't think we're getting 4.5 unless Foran is officially scratched. So we'll wait and see what happens with that one there. Next up, we've got the Warriors plus 2.5 points against the Dragons. 38.5 is the total. We like the Warriors in this one, and I guess for me it's fairly simple. I look at these two teams on paper, and let's just say both teams are fully healthy. I can get that the Dragons are a better team than the Warriors. How much better fully healthy, I'm not quite sure, but it's not even 2.5 points, I would say. Now you've got to factor in that Corey Norman is out, Jai Field comes in, so that's certainly a downgrade for the Dragons. He's actually been playing decently lately. Then you get Nikorima coming in. I don't think that that's a massive upgrade for the Warriors. I think Harris DeVita was playing absolutely fine. If anything, I think Nikorima is probably a similar sort of level player. If it was another 5'8", I would think, maybe the Warriors would be kind of pissed off because, you're taking Harris DeVita's spot, whatever. But Nikorima, loves New Zealand from there, etc. I think they'll lift. And you get Fusatua back, who's arguably one of the best 10 wingers in the comp. You could certainly make an argument for that, I would say, maybe even more. So I just think that, you can make an argument that both these teams are equal at this point. Maybe the Dragons are a touch better, but certainly not 2.5 points better, I'd say.
It is hard because the Warriors are so inconsistent. You don't know if they're going to bring it. We've spoken about, this team has lost 4 weeks in a row, but you look at how many of those games they should have won. Now, they weren't good enough last week against the Knights, and that was one of the couple of games, only 2 games last week that we got bang on. We were all over the Knights on Sunday to recuperate some losses from round 8. But Fusatua comes back in the team, as you said. Harsh for Janelle Harris-Tafita to get dropped. But people forget Nikorima was playing in the halves for that New Zealand team that beat Australia in October last year. Isaac Luke's been dropped. I wonder if that does put people on notice too. Blair is suspended. Again, those are some inconsistent players in Luke and Blair, so I don't know how much of a loss that is. Herbert keeps his starting spot, and he's been better than my former favourite player, Solomon Akata. I think it's over between me and him.
You're done.
Maybe.
You're not on the island anymore.
In for Norman. So, as you said, that's a downgrade. And that's going to put, for me, this game will come down to Ben Hunt playing, in his old hometown. Because it's going to be interesting to see which halves has the advantage. Blake Green and Nikorima with no real combination. But Jai Field coming from reserve grade 2. And Jai Field is very much like a speed-star kind of eyes-up player. All the organisation now falls on Ben Hunt in this one. The Dragons do have the better forward pack, and maybe it would be a little different if Frizzell was out, but Frizzell, tough as nails, good to go in this one. But I do give edge to the Warriors outside backs. That's why, for me, it comes back down to which halves can make the better plays on fifth tackle. And I do foresee a really close game, and I believe the Warriors turn up. I actually also think there could be more Kiwis in the crowd than St. George fans. Just these little edges. I definitely feel that the Warriors catching the points is the right side to be on in this one.
Indeed, and we've got 4 best bets at this point. First up, we're taking the Warriors plus 4 points for the game. That one's $1.94 on BetEasy. Staying on BetEasy, we've got the Warriors plus 2 in the first half and plus 2 in the first half and in the second half. I need to edit that because it says first half. I'm sure people can kind of understand that. Anyway, it's plus 2 in the first half and plus 2 in the second half. They're both $1.95 on BetEasy. And we're taking the Warriors plus half a try. That one's $1.95 on Bet365. Next up, we have the Storm laying 6.5 points against the Eels. 37.5 is the total, so another low total. I actually really like the Storm in this game. I think it's an absolutely great spot for them. They're coming off a loss against the Sharks, which not only was a bad loss, but I think that they were actually the better team for at least the first half in that game. And honestly, they're up 12-6. They had chances to make it 18-6. The Sharks hit a late try in the first half. I think that game easily could have gone the other way, and no one would have even blinked an eye. But instead, every single person and everyone in the group as well is completely off the Storm. I understand they've had a rough month, but the Sharks, they can be a tough side. And like I said previously, they put in their best performance of the year against the Storm. Bellamy's come out and absolutely ripped all the players. I expect a massive performance from them. So it's a great spot to take the Storm in my eyes. Nothing against the Eels. I think the Eels are a great side this year. I said in the preseason pod that I was going to be high on the Eels, especially because they had a terrible season last year. And they've done exactly that. They're putting in week after week. Moses is playing great. The issue they're coming they are the much inferior side here, I believe, and they're coming off a televised primetime Monday night game where everyone saw them come back from 14 points down to win by a margin. So I think the public is going to be on the Eels, and I've already kind of seen that line shift from 6.5, and there's a little bit of money on the Eels. So although I do like the Storm, I really do think I can probably even get a 6 or a 5.5 closer to game time. And at that point, I would absolutely love them. They're one of the sides, apart from the Broncos, that I feel very strongly about this week.
Yeah, and you make a good case, and I agree with all your points that the Storm should win this game. The one thing that really holds me back is just it's a steep line because it's been so many weeks in a row now that the Storm have underperformed. So you just have to start wondering, like, what's wrong with this team? Bellamy himself said they were crap on Friday night. I know that you can say a couple of moments in that game could have gone differently. They could have won. In fact, they were crap against New Zealand too, and they did win. And hey, it's not a bad thing when you're terrible and you're winning games or you're losing by 2 points.
I thought they were definitely crap in the second half. I thought that they were better than the Sharks in the first half.
Yeah, but they definitely don't have that aura where they put their foot on your throat once they get a lead. They're not as crisp with their ball play. I mean, I spoke on Sunday. There's a really obvious reason that they do miss Billy Slater because while Jerome Hughes is a great runner of the ball, and attacking and deadly and looked good in the first 3 weeks, he is not the playmaker. And, Croft is still, far from being a star. A lot of pressure on Munster. But look, one of these games they're going to unleash on somebody, and it could be this week. But the Eels will know that, and the Eels, I think, will throw a lot at them. I think they'll offload. I think they'll play real attacking and throw a lot of extra passes. The Eels, you have to be impressed, coming from 14-0 down to beat the Dragons by double digits. Timmy Manor comes back in, and I know people will probably roll their eyes, but Manor's a great, bench prop. He just was not a great starting prop who's the captain of a club. But that, bolsters this side a little bit. And to me, it's just that being at 6.5, I'm in no rush to take -6.5 with the Storm because that wouldn't have won the last 4 or 5 weeks. But maybe this week, if the line gets a little bit lower, we got to trust the Storm. We know they will get it right at some point.
Yep, indeed. And next up, we're moving to the Sunday games. We've got the Roosters -7.5 points against the Raiders. 42.5 is the total. Look, I understand how good the Roosters are. We kind of said this, at the start of last year. I think we might have even said it at the start of 2 years ago, and we said it at the start of this year. They are obviously the most talented side in the comp. They've got an absolutely stacked roster, and on their day, they can absolutely blow out teams, as we saw last week against the Tigers, at 6-all, and then you blink and you lose by 30 points in the space of 50 minutes. So they can certainly put it on. The thing is, the Raiders are a very solid team. Is anyone going to argue? I know they're top 4. No one's going to argue against you that they probably belong there. They've played like a top 4 side this season. Ricky Stewart's got them playing absolutely great defense, which is not the Raiders of old that we are used to. They're used to seeing them throw it around, chance their arm, and let in a shitload of points. But this year's Raiders are different. The big loss here is Bateman, obviously. He's out for 4 to 6 weeks, I believe, which is a huge blow to them. But you do get Rapana back. Who's a playmaker. He can make some plays there on the wing for him. Look, I know the line here, 7.5, it's probably, it's quite obvious that the Roosters are the better team here. But I think the Raiders come into this one, it's an absolutely, huge spot for them. Magic round. You're playing the ladder leading. Are they ladder leading at the moment? I don't know. Probably on points difference after,
Haven't lost a game since round 1.
Yeah, that's true, actually. So they're outright, yeah. So the Raiders coming in, they're playing top of the ladder Roosters. I expect a massive performance from the Raiders. I can see the Roosters winning, but I think the Raiders can certainly keep it tight in this one. Yeah,
Bateman out is a massive loss, but we are still going to trust the Raiders. And you mentioned Rapana back. They need him back because they also lost BJ Leilua just before kickoff last week. Although they got the win, I think we've kind of spoke about that. The scorelines of both these sides last week maybe flatter them, but both deserved to get a good win last week. And yeah, top 4 battle here. It's funny, as we said before, we're going to be there at Suncorp for the doubleheader on Sunday. These 2 games have the highest lines of all 8 games. So they're, expected to be the least close. But we think both games can be close to spoil or to tease the next one. We do think that the Raiders defensively can keep it close. I mean, to me, my biggest concern is, of course, Latrell Mitchell, what he did to the Tigers last week. But looking at him lining up against Michael Oldfield, I'm really worried about that. But obviously Sticky's worried as well. He's reshuffled his back row. Elliot Whitehead moves over to the right side of the field, I think just to help Oldfield. I believe they may have even both played in the same, was it Catalans, maybe in the Super League together. They got some little bit of combo there, and they're going to have their hands full. But on the other side, I think Manu, being a younger player, and Ikuvalu a little bit inexperienced, they'll have a handful with Kotrick and Croker on the left side there. So there's just enough in this Raiders side. You've got two very informed 5'8" head-to-head in Kiri and Whiten. And the line, the fact that we were just able to get over 8 points, we felt it's enough value to actually take the green machine in this one.
Yeah, and at this point, we've only got 2 plays on it. As we said, it's not, a slam dunk play, but we've taken the Raiders plus 8.5 points. You can find that one on BetEasy. You have to look in the pick your own line section. It will be $1.80. We're taking Raiders to win a half. That one is $1.83 on BetEasy. So even if they're down 24-0 at halftime, you've still got a half decent chance of that one. And the last game of the round, we got the Rabbits minus 9.5 points against the Cowboys. 42.5 is the total. I guess for this one, in terms of personnel, Josh Maguire is out, which certainly hurts. But you get Colfelt coming back into the side. And, obviously from the last couple of weeks, you've had Tamalolo. And as we know, he is the difference maker in this forward pack. As long as you have him in there, this Cowboys forward pack is going to be one of the best in the comp. And honestly, with him in there, I don't think you can argue against that they're a top 4 forward pack in the comp. We've got the Rabbits coming off an absolutely blowout win against the Broncos last week. That was brutal for us. But once again, the public, I think, will certainly be on the Rabbits in this one. They haven't given punters a reason to back against them the last few weeks. They've just been absolutely rolling. And, that there's an argument to be made that the Rabbits could be playing, at least the second best footy in the comp right now behind the Roosters. So I understand that the Rabbits are a good side. They're better than the Cowboys. However, the Cowboys get a confidence-boosting win last week. Are they really 10 points worse than the Rabbits? I don't think so. I think generally the NRL is one of the closest comps in the world. You rarely ever see a line, above 12. Sometimes you see a line of like 16 when it's like Roosters against a fucking shit team. But the Cowboys are not the worst team in the comp. The Rabbits are not the best team in the comp. I think this line should be closer to 6 or 7 points. But we can get, we've made ourselves a flat 10, and I think at that point the Cowboys are certainly value. I think they can keep it close here.
Well, you talk about the Cowboys being a top 4 pack. I don't know. Have they got a better forward pack than the Bunnies with Maguire out for this one? I think we overrate the Cowboys. I don't like the Cowboys at all this year, to be honest. And even at this game, when I really looked deep into it, I felt the Cowboys are the value. So that kind of makes me confident we got to take them. Hey, a little bit of Queensland factor there too, that the home crowd. A lot of people in Brisbane, no one dislikes the Cowboys. Kind of a lot of people's second team. I think they get a little bit of an edge from that. You mentioned Tamalolo. I think he was just back for his first game last week, and he instantly, made a world of difference. But Maguire
over 200 metres is fucking ridiculous.
Well, we start by looking at these two forward packs, I suppose. I mean, Tamalolo and Burgess, as in Sam Burgess, that's your two leading forwards. That's going to be a hell of a battle. You've got Cam Murray, I feel, is knocking down the door for a Blues jersey, while Cohen Hess really has been getting better every week, needs to put up a huge show to get his maroon jersey back. I feel like your Suttons and your Gavin Coopers kind of cancel out, and your experienced back rowers there. And then your forward packs, you've got the Burgess twins versus McLean and Scott. I do think that the Cowboys could actually win the forward battle, or at least match them. Now, in the halves, not many players playing better than Cody Walker and Reynolds there, whereas the Cowboys have got Asiata playing 6, so it's a lot of pressure on Morgan. And the back line felt coming back in helps, but the Bunnies still definitely have the better outside backs, and the Bunnies' spine is as good as any. And the Bunnies, after a few early season disruptions with injuries, they've been unchanged for a few weeks, and they got how many days to prepare for this one? 10, coming off of Thursday to play Sunday. So I definitely think the Bunnies are, obviously going to be favourites and more than a converted try. But I still couldn't quite see them kind of the gulf between these two teams being that far. I think the Cowboys can compete in this one too, so we've got to grab them in a couple of the best bets.
Yeah, you're not wrong. It might be, they might be playing the best halves in the comp at the moment. I mean, Cody Walker has been playing ridiculous. I think they said something like he has scored or assisted on 2/3 of the Rabbits' tries, and they have scored a shitload of tries this season, and that's an absolutely ridiculous stat. Anyway, we're taking one best bet for now. We're taking a mechanical Cowboys plus 10 points. It's going to end up at $1.84. How you're going to do it is you're going to put 56% of your stake on Cows plus 11.5 points. That one is $1.77 in the sports bet pick your own line section, and you're going to put the remaining 44% of your stake on Cowboys plus 9.5 points. You'll find that one at $1.91 on Bet365. And that will do it. That's all 8 games. I think we had 12 best bets. What we might do, you've seen them all in the video, obviously, but we will have more best bets tomorrow morning. So we'll go through those, scan through every single game, see what other value we can find, and post it up in the Tripod app around lunchtime tomorrow. If you don't have the app, or if you're not in the group, there are details in the description to this video on how to both join the group and download the app for free. It's a good time there. Lots of tips from not only us, but a lot of other great tips as well. You've obviously got NBA finals going on, NHL finals going on. You've got baseball up and running again. So there's lots of tips in there. And there are some people that are absolutely crushing it in the group and in the app. So make sure you're in there. Anything you want to add, Jacob, before we head out of here?
No, I mean, I could just repeat that, whether it's round 1 this season where we went like 83% or last week where we went like 23%, our process is actually pretty much the same. I know we get a big pat on the back. Obviously, when you're giving out betting tips, everyone is going to focus on the result. And the result is all that matters. You either win or you lose. But our process, we do the same work every week. It's just whether it all comes together. But we like to think we give ourselves the best opportunity to succeed. So we like the plays we've shared tonight. We'll be diving in to find a few more tomorrow. And I'm very excited for this, first ever Magic Round and to meet, a couple of people who follow if we do bump into some people on Sunday as well. So it should be a hell of a weekend.
Yeah, definitely. And just to address one comment, Dick Carr is here again. He's always chiming in the pod. He said he's lost his pension check on the Saints from our tips for last week. Unfortunately, Richard, we weren't on the Saints last week, so that was your own doing, unfortunately. So sorry about that. But we'll catch you in the group, and we'll catch you in the app, and we'll see you guys. We'll probably do a live Sunday pod. We're going to be at the games, obviously, so we might just do one on the phone after the games finish up at Suncorp on Sunday. So we'll catch you then.